Nixon's time in office included significant events in American history. His presidency saw changes in foreign and domestic policy. These policies still influence the country today. Despite his resignation, Nixon achieved major successes. He improved relations with China and the Soviet Union. His diplomacy changed global politics and ensured a lasting impact. Nixon's presidency also reshaped journalism. The Watergate scandal increased the focus on investigative reporting. This strengthened the role of the press in holding leaders accountable. Nixon's legacy remains complex. He is remembered for opening relations with China and his environmental policies. However, his resignation tarnished his reputation. Richard Nixon was born into a modest family in Yorba Linda, California. His father, Frank Nixon, ran a service station and a small grocery store. Life was not easy for the Nixons. Nixon's mother, Hannah, was a devoted Quaker. Her faith strongly influenced Richard's character. Quakerism emphasized honesty, simplicity, and hard work, traits that Nixon carried throughout his life. Nixon attended Whittier College in California. He was known for his discipline and determination. At Whittier, Nixon was involved in debate and student government, building his skills for future leadership. After graduating from Whittier in 1934, Nixon went on to Duke University Law School in North Carolina. He excelled academically and became known for his sharp mind. At Duke, Nixon worked hard to earn scholarships. This showed his perseverance, as his family lacked the funds to support his education. His efforts paid off, and he graduated in 1937. Nixon returned to California to start his legal career. He practiced law in Whittier, where he gained respect for his abilities. His life began to move toward public service. During this time, Nixon met Thelma "Pat" Ryan, a teacher and actress. The couple married in 1940. Their strong partnership would play an important role in Nixon's public life. Nixon's early experiences shaped his worldview. His Quaker upbringing, education, and work ethic prepared him for the challenges of politics. He was ready to rise in national leadership. After serving in the Navy during World War II, Richard Nixon entered politics. In 1946, he ran for a seat in the U.S. House of Representatives and defeated Jerry Voorhis. Nixon's campaign against Voorhis relied on anti-communist themes. He used accusations of communist ties to weaken his opponent's reputation, which resonated with voters after the war. Once elected, Nixon quickly gained attention. He joined the House Un-American Activities Committee, SHUAC, where he played a key role in investigating alleged communist activities. In one of the most famous cases, Nixon questioned Alger Hiss, a former State Department official accused of spying for the Soviet Union. This case brought national fame to Nixon. Whittaker Chambers, a journalist and former Soviet spy, provided evidence against Hiss. Nixon's sharp questioning during the hearing strengthened his reputation as a strong anti-communist. Hiss denied the accusations, but was later convicted of perjury. Nixon's work on the case helped to cement his status as a rising star in national politics. In 1950, Nixon ran for the U.S. Senate against Helen Gahagan Douglas. His campaign was aggressive, using pink sheets to compare her voting record to known communists. Nixon's tactics earned him the nickname Tricky Dick. Despite criticism, his approach was effective, and he won the election. This victory solidified his place in American politics. Nixon's early career was defined by his fierce anti-communist stance. These successes helped him gain the trust of conservative voters and paved the way for higher office. Richard Nixon became Dwight D. Eisenhower's running mate in 1952. His anti-communist reputation and popularity in the West made him a strong choice for vice president. During the campaign, Nixon faced accusations of using a secret fund for personal expenses. Critics claimed this could damage his political career and the Republican Party's image. To address the controversy, Nixon gave the famous Checkers speech on national television. He defended his honesty and mentioned only accepting a gift, a puppy named Checkers. The speech saved his career and strengthened his connection with voters. Eisenhower chose to keep Nixon on the ticket. They won the election by a large margin. As vice president, Nixon focused on supporting Eisenhower's administration. He often campaigned for Republican candidates and took on diplomatic trips abroad. In Latin America, Nixon faced hostile protests. During a 1958 trip, his car was attacked by angry demonstrators. This showed the growing tensions between the U.S. and some countries. Nixon's role became more significant when Eisenhower suffered health problems. He chaired cabinet meetings and the National Security Council during Eisenhower's illnesses. These experiences highlighted Nixon's abilities and prepared him for greater responsibilities. However, Eisenhower's advisors kept Nixon from having much real power. Despite limited influence, Nixon's vice presidency marked a shift. He helped make the role more active, paving the way for future vice presidents to have greater responsibilities. In 1960, Richard Nixon ran for president against John F. Kennedy. The campaign included the first televised presidential debates, which became historic events. Nixon was recovering from an injury during the debates. Despite his strong arguments, he appeared pale and tired on screen, while Kennedy looked confident and composed. Many viewers believed Kennedy won the debates based on his appearance. This marked a turning point, showing how television could influence public perception in elections. The election was one of the closest in U.S. history. Kennedy won by fewer than 120,000 votes out of 68 million cast, leaving Nixon narrowly defeated. Some suspected voter fraud in key states like Illinois and Texas. However, Nixon chose not to contest the results, saying it would harm the nation's image. After losing the presidency, Nixon returned to California. In 1962, he ran for governor of the state, but lost to Democrat Edmund "Pat" Brown in a difficult campaign. Frustrated by the defeat, Nixon announced his retirement from politics. He told reporters they would no longer have Dick Nixon to kick around anymore. Despite this statement, Nixon stayed involved in public life. He moved to New York, practiced law, and built a reputation as an expert in foreign affairs. By the late 1960s, Nixon began planning a political comeback. His resilience and ability to connect with conservatives positioned him as a strong Republican leader again. Richard Nixon won the presidency in 1968, defeating Hubert Humphrey and George Wallace. His campaign focused on ending the Vietnam War and restoring law and order. Nixon's domestic policies were significant. He created the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, in 1970, marking a new era of government focus on protecting natural resources. His administration also expanded Social Security with cost of living adjustments. These changes ensured benefits would rise with inflation, helping older Americans maintain financial stability. Nixon proposed the Family Assistance Program, offering a minimum income to poor families. Though it failed in Congress, it inspired later welfare reforms. On civil rights, Nixon supported affirmative action. This policy aimed to increase job opportunities for minorities through hiring quotas in federal projects. Nixon was reluctant on school desegregation but complied with court orders. Under his administration, the number of African American students in integrated schools increased greatly. Economic challenges defined much of Nixon's presidency. Inflation was high, and unemployment grew. Nixon implemented wage and price controls in 1971 to stabilize the economy. He also removed the U.S. from the gold standard, which allowed the dollar's value to fluctuate. These steps created short-term relief but brought long-term instability. Foreign policy was a key focus for Nixon. His strategy of détente reduced tensions with major powers like China and the Soviet Union, reshaping global politics. Nixon became the first U.S. president to visit China in 1972. This historic trip re-established diplomatic ties and shifted the balance of the Cold War. He also signed the Salt Wine Treaty with the Soviet Union. This agreement limited the arms race, making it a key moment in U.S.-Soviet relations. Nixon's presidency showed a mix of progress and challenges. While his domestic reforms and diplomacy succeeded, economic problems and scandals overshadowed his accomplishments. The Watergate scandal began with a break-in at the Democratic National Committee headquarters in 1972. The burglars were linked to Nixon's re-election campaign. Investigations revealed efforts to cover up the connection between the burglars and Nixon's administration. This led to growing public and political pressure on the president. Reporters from The Washington Post, Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein, uncovered details of the scandal. Their work highlighted the role of investigative journalism in exposing corruption. In 1973, a Senate committee began hearings on the Watergate affair. Witnesses testified about illegal actions, including attempts to obstruct justice and misuse government power. The most damaging evidence came from White House recordings. Tapes revealed that Nixon had participated in efforts to cover up the scandal shortly after the break-in. The tapes caused widespread outrage. Calls for Nixon's impeachment grew louder, with both Democrats and Republicans agreeing that he had violated public trust. Facing near-certain impeachment, Nixon announced his resignation on August 8, 1974. He became the first U.S. president to resign from office. Nixon's resignation marked a major turning point in American politics. It showed the importance of accountability, even for the highest office in the country. After leaving office, Nixon was pardoned by his successor, Gerald Ford. This decision was controversial, but aimed to help the nation heal and move forward. Richard Nixon's legacy remains complex and divisive. He is remembered for significant achievements, but also for the scandal that ended his presidency. On the positive side, Nixon's foreign policy changed global politics. His efforts with China and the Soviet Union reduced Cold War tensions and promoted diplomacy. Nixon also left a mark on domestic policies. Environmental initiatives like the EPA and his expansion of Social Security remain influential in American governance today. Nixon's reputation has been reassessed over time. Some recognize his contributions to foreign policy and domestic reforms, while others focus on his ethical failings. Despite his flaws, Nixon influenced how leaders are judged. His presidency highlighted the importance of balancing ambition with integrity and transparency. Nixon's story serves as a reminder that public officials are held to high standards. His achievements and failures continue to shape discussions about leadership and accountability.